All right, I started recording.
All right, so this is a document I created to get all the like the first attempt, the second attempt, and third attempt. For those who did not attend the first time, first attempt it was created by John Griffiths. He proposed to edit the PVC specs itself and to make like two entities, like the original PVC start to create a transfer request. And this one will add annotation to this PVC, and the target PVC will be created and it will be transferring. And once this is done, we will update the claim ref from the PVC to the PV itself. And there was a POC created and also another KEP for changes in the API. The second attempt that we are following on is created by Michael Henriksen. He's here already today. He proposed to have a resource called storage transfer request and another resource called storage transfer approval. And when the will be controller will detect this two resources exist, and there will be open certain condition matching. Then we initiate the transfer, and then after the transfer is done, the source PVC will be deleted, and the target PVC will be created and will be updated to the PV. He also recommended to use a CRD and external controller. And this was the third attempt that started by Christian Huffman. And he added to PVC the volume snapshot. Also followed the same approach as Michael Henriksen. But also in the KEP, there was a comment by Masaki. He actually created a POC which will edit the PVC itself, the entry, and we will add certain fields to the spec of the PVC and also condition types. And he also had a diagram showing how this interaction will happen. We discussed this as a first session, and there will follow up in the KEP meeting bi-weekly. Many participants added comments. We agreed that we will follow the CRD approach. Actually, there is a implementation by Michael Henriksen for Red Hat. It's not for PVC or specifically, it's for the image transfer for KubeVirt, but it's similar approach. We agreed that we will start a new KEP, gathering the whole feedbacks and starting building on this implementation. Ben has had some issues, or he said that the storage class secrets will be a problem for this, and this could be a blocker. Michael Henriksen thankfully added his comments. He actually showed briefly how it's implemented right now in KubeVirt. Basically, there is a cluster scope resource called object transfer, and this resource contains the type of the resource we want to transfer, the namespace, the source namespace, and the resource name itself, and also the target for the namespace and the resource name. Also, there is a link for implementation for the PVC. And there will be also, like Masaki proposed, in editing the PVC respect, that we will have certain phases, and in each phase there will be certain expectation for the PVC and the PV itself.
But wait a minute, what was the resolution for the secrets? I understand that we're at least aware of the issue, but is the plan to leave the secrets behind, or that the controller will move secrets for the user, or is that another knob that we can control?
We actually will discuss this today, so that's why.
Oh, okay.
No worries.
Okay.
Yeah.
It's not a blocker as long as we decide on a solution.
Yeah, sure. So I just wanted to finish. So the comments is in the doc for everyone. This added by Michael, and he is here today. He can please correct me if I'm wrong. So again, there will be a cluster scope object transfer, and this will be the source of how we initiate the transfer.
Hey, Mustafa, can you?
So this was just so what I've done so far. So in the way I've implemented it,
now is with this cluster scope resource, with the idea being that there will be a namespace scope API built on top that will do the matching. And when the matching happens, it will kick off one of the cluster scoped resources to do the actual transfer. So and this is also, I guess, another option for cluster admins to more easily do a transfer.
Can you increase the font size, by the way? Just, I think it's just too small. Or just me, I don't know.
The zoom. That's the key. It's at 100.
This is for me. Like, you can't hear me well.
It is very small. It is small.
If you can, where it says 100%, you could change it to like 150 on the zoom on the left side on the toolbar for the document. It's on the not for zoom itself. For the document, it has a zoom percentage on the left side. It's all the way to the left.
Ah, sorry. So I can zoom like this. Is it better now?
Yeah, that works.
Okay. So this is the resource, the CRD. It's a cluster scope resource, and there is implementation here for KubeVirt. And again, so we have phases, and in each phase we have a specific state for the PVC, and OpenSys. We update like the specs in the PVCs, and make decisions even to like delete the source PVC, transfer the PV to the new PVC, and so on. There is race conditions because we have, I think, cluster scope resource. And also there is a problem that if, even though we can wait for all the consuming pods that they are terminated before we do the transfer, a pod in creation time could not be aware of that and could have a problem that it's referring a PVC, which will be deleted or when it is deleted. Yeah, so far these are the notes that I have gathered, and I'm opening this for discussion for everyone.
Yeah, so just to reiterate, this API, we're using it in KubeVirt internally, but for like a more user-focused thing, we plan to build a namespace scoped API on top of this. So I don't know if that's an approach the community would be interested in as well, and including in the new CAP. So yeah, that's just one thing. And,
excuse me. So the one that is currently proposed, that CRD, is the one that you have already implemented?
Yeah, the one that I've implemented.
This
one?
one?
The one that I've implemented is cluster scoped.
Okay.
The CAP is for namespace scoped, and as kind of an implementation detail, I was thinking the namespace scoped would be implemented by having a controller that simply does the matching, and then once the matching is done for request and approval, creates internally an object transfer that does the actual transfer.
Mm-hmm.
And the cluster scoped API could also be useful for cluster admins.
Right, but we don't need two, right? We only need one. Otherwise, it's going to be confusing if you have both. Are you planning to have both?
Yeah, I think. So again, we're using this object transfer directly internally. I think. Yeah, planning to have both. But yeah, I can understand the community may think that's confusing.
Yeah, having two layers of indirection for no reason doesn't feel very clean.
Yeah, I mean, well, to me, yeah, this is, the namespace scoped API would be more of a user generated API, and this could be more of the admin API. But yeah, I could understand where.
Right, but once we have the namespace one, the admin can also use that.
Yeah, sure. Yeah.
So like I would view this more as like maybe a prototype, like just to get the implementation working, have a clustered API, but with a plan to get rid of it once there is a namespace API, because once there is, I don't see any reason to keep it around.
That may be true for definitely a community focused thing. We don't really, this is obviously available in KubeVirt, but it's not really exposed and we kind of use it internally. But yeah, once we have a namespace API, we could get rid of this.
So what about the one proposed in Christian's CAP? Is that the namespace? I thought it's namespace, right?
Yep.
Okay.
So I guess we could talk more about just the implementation steps here, if that may be more relevant than the API. Or we can talk about the comments that have come up on the CAP that exists and whatever people want to do.
Yeah, can we agree on this API? I mean, the one proposed in the CAP, the one that Christian has.
Yeah, I like the one in the CAP.
That?
Yeah, I like the one. I mean, I personally like the one in the CAP for namespace. I also like that it has that. That's the secret kind of to make it easy, like more secure. I think that was a good addition. But yeah, I like this API here.
Okay.
Just do you want to see the like the CRDs or like
yeah, can we take a look
of
of that? Yeah, is that
Sure.
how different? I mean, other than the namespace, oh, this looks tiny.
Yeah, I'm just opening it here.
Okay.
Sorry. So this is the KEP proposed by Christian. So it will be like a storage transfer request. Contains these specs. The secrets, this is a blocker that Ben raised, or the issue that Ben raised. And there will be another resource, which is accept, sorry. And these are the conditions in which the controller will initiate the transfer.
It could use the same model. This very similar, but if it's not, it could adjust to use the same model as a CSR being signed by the certificate manager. You had to send an approval for a request to have it signed. Does that make sense? Do you guys understand know the CSR model in Kubernetes?
Yes. Yeah. It does seem very similar.
Yeah, if it has that same style, it's even really nice for the users because then they're familiar with that model of saying, I'm making a request. I need it to be accepted because it's a cluster-wide event.
But that implies a central authority. Like, isn't the principle here that you should be able to do peer-to-peer transfers from any two users without a central authority being involved?
If that's a requirement, that may be a requirement or not. I'm not sure.
Yeah, I thought that was the principle behind, like, all you have are two namespace objects, and then like Alice and Bob want to trade a volume, so Alice creates a CR, Bob creates a CR, and it moves from Alice's namespace to Bob's namespace, and they don't need any administrator to get involved as long as the two of them agree.
I would say that if that's to be true, I think the administrator would have to at least allow the two to pass volumes between each other, because you could have a situation where you have two malicious users transferring data between one to another. So I think of at least you would want a admin to say these two users can pass things between each other.
Can you explain the malicious case?
So if you and I work for two different companies, and you gave me some money, and then I give you the volume, something like that.
Okay, but like, we can already do that, right? If it's my volume, I can just read the contents off and send it to you out of band if you give me money. Like,
yeah,
I'm not just
trying
anything. So the idea is the guy who currently has access to it has to agree to give it to someone else. And the main reason that we want the recipient to also create something is to prevent giving of unwanted volumes, right? If I spam you with 100 volumes that you don't want to have to deal with that. So requiring both the current owner and the new owner to participate addresses that problem.
Yeah, that's true. I'm fine with that. as long as the target namespace owner, or there's a CR in the namespace where the target is going to go. Whoever created that, it doesn't have to be an admin, right? It can be.
Right. Right.
Yeah. Yeah. I think that works. Yeah. So sorry if we wasted a few minutes there.
No worries. Okay, so like everyone agrees on this approach better than the cluster scoped approach.
It seems like, yeah, that this has been the idea since John was proposing it. So I would like to see an implementation that shows that it actually works in practice, but in principle, I think this is the right approach.
Yeah, the only thing I would say is that what's the necessity for the token to be part of it instead of referencing to a secret?
Well, yeah, I still want to understand what happens if my if my PV refers to secrets that are in my namespace and I'm trying to transfer it to someone else. Do they also get my secrets, or do they have to create their own secrets? Like, what I want to understand what the resolution is there.
Does this mean this looks like this is like a different secret specific namespace? So this is not really the same namespace as the PVC. So we imply that this actually can be also used by this other recipient who also has access to this namespace. So this
Yeah,
is
that part I do not know.
the secret namespace. And it's a
Abhishek,
source
did you
namespace.
put your hand up?
Yes.
The way that it works is that, you know, your storage class can say that each PVC that gets created will either refer to a secret that is like in a specific namespace, or it can be templatized based on the namespace of the PVC that it came from, right? So if someone's using that feature where every PVC gets a templatized secret from the namespace that it came from, then once you rebind the PV to a PVC in a different namespace, it's still going to refer to the secrets in the original namespace. And then if the original namespace goes away, you lose the volume. So it seems like you want to do something that involves either creating new secrets or copying the secrets or moving the secrets or something to the destination namespace, or you require that that's arranged out of band, right? You could just explicitly say, look, if you have secrets and you don't do something, this will break, and so you have to do something. Like that might not be friendly, but it will at least be correct.
Or could we
So
reject
one of the proposals mentioned object transfer, object instead of storage transfer. If you have something generic like an object transfer, you can also transfer secrets that way. But the onus, the burden is on the user to know what's involved and transfer everything.
But that makes the feature a little less usable. Is my concern is users don't necessarily know that secrets are being manufactured.
I guess the bigger question is, do we want to make this generic beyond PVCs, or do we want to make it applicable to all the objects, any object?
I think this is a generic approach, actually. This is that's why this is a CRD, right? And then this is for both PVC and volume snapshot right now.
I mean, why do we call it storage? I mean, this can also be applicable to objects outside of storage.
Then I
well,
don't know.
The question is whether the dependencies,
that's where secrets come in. Yeah.
Yeah, the question is whether the dependencies get transferred or not, because like you could in principle have a PVC that depends on some secrets, but other PVCs also depend on the same secrets. And so just transferring the secret is not what you want, because then you'll rip it out from under other PVCs that still need it. You might need to copy the secret or something. It's going to be very situation dependent. And so if we're talking about transferring objects across namespaces and their dependencies, then you need a deep understanding of what those dependencies are and how they're being used to affect the transfer correctly.
It's also I think certain admins would not like the idea of a controller that can read all secrets from all namespaces.
Yeah. I mean, there's a security threat that needs to be analyzed underneath all of this, but just from a basic correctness point of view, we have to have a stance on like, Are we copying secrets? Are we moving secrets? Are we leaving this as an exercise for the admin? Are we leaving this as an exercise for the users? Like whose job is it to get the secrets to the other side?
So can we go through some examples of these secrets, how they are created? Does the driver create them? Does the user create them? What are some of the use cases for these secrets?
I think that the user creates them in the current model. Like in your storage class, you can specify a name or a name pattern in the storage class, and that will get stamped on the PVs. But then Kubernetes only ever reads the secrets that already exist. And if I'm not mistaken, I think Portworx is the heaviest user of this feature.
Right.
Luis, do you know what's going on there with the secrets? Did we lose Luis?
This is Masaki. Thank you very much for your explanation, Ben, about the problem. I sent a message on the chat window. Could you open the URL?
Yeah, I'll go look at my screen in just a second. I'm not in front of my screen, but I'll go.
I don't think this solve all the problem mentioned there. Could you make a little bit more?
So
bigger?
I don't understand. You said to open this link. I open it, right?
Yeah. Could you make it bigger?
Oh, sure. Sorry.
Yeah. I've implemented the prototype of the secret handling based on my POC implementation. The idea is to modify a PV based on its storage class template before it is bound to the destination PV. So if the secret is referencing to the same namespace of the source PVC, it can be modified to reference to the destination namespace based on the storage class templates.
Are you copying the content of the secret to this destination, or are you still referring to the same secret, or is it a different secret after this transfer?
So different secrets. So the user need to clone the content of the secret to the destination namespace. But if it is done, the PV should reference to the namespace, the secret in the destination namespace. So user can access to the PV if the reference is fixed in a correct way and the secret exists in their own namespace.
So I like the idea of the PVC ending up so that it still is correct based on like how it would have looked if it had been created in the other namespace as far as secrets are concerned. I do worry a little bit about depending on the storage class, because the storage class can change or get deleted after the volume is created. So
yeah,
there's no reason to believe that the definition of the secrets in the storage class now is still accurate. I think you have to go based on what storage class looked like at the time that the volume was created, because that's how the secrets were stamped on that particular volume. But you could still figure that out, I think. I hope.
Yeah.
I'd have to think that through. But it raises a few technical issues. One is I believe that the secrets portion of the PV object are immutable, and so how do you propose to actually change them?
Yeah, you're right. So I've added comment. So in the prototype, I blindly allow the controller to modify the PV's secret ref, but we might consider changing it more better way, like adding a status only arrow.
Well, but what I'm getting at is like if the current field is immutable, the only way to change it is to delete the PV and create a whole new PV. And is that what we want?
It's also possible if we have a, legitimate use case, we can make the field mutable.
Ah, okay. But that means this feature would only work with versions of Kubernetes
Correct.
newer than that change. Okay, well that's worth thinking through. But yeah. So if the presumption is we're going to mutate the PV so it points to secrets that look like as if the PV was created in the new namespace where it now lives, then yeah, you know any sort of templatized secrets that point back to the original namespace have to be updated, and then it's just a question of who copies them or who moves them to the new namespace.
Yes, this is the next problem. But
and
the
copying and
user
moving
of
secrets
transfer, yeah,
is a
Yeah.
sensitive operation. So,
yeah, yeah.
Yeah, I don't think you should. Well, just my opinion, but I don't think we should move a secret, but the PV should point to a new secret, the new one on the target cluster, on the target namespace.
Yeah.
So I don't know if we need to really go after copying secrets. Just point to the one on that namespace that's new, because it could be my secret that I want to look into.
Right, but if you have like Alice who has a volume that she wants to give to Bob, and the volume is encrypted with Alice's key, which is in a secret in Alice's namespace, and now she's handing the volume to Bob, like either you have to re-encrypt the whole volume with Bob's key, which is something that this controller can't do, or Alice needs to give a copy of her key to Bob so that he can read the volume.
Yeah, that's true. But I don't know. I'm trying to say let's punt on that, because that seems like an out-of-band request to copy.
But I mean, CSI explicitly supports this today, right? Like I can create a volume, and in my storage class, I can say encryption key equals, my namespace dot volume encryption key.
That's right.
And
at a different namespace, or the same namespace from the PVC. Correct.
Or yeah, it could just be whatever namespace the PVC is in. So every namespace has an encryption key that's different. Everyone's volume is encrypted with the key that is in their namespace. And now anytime you transfer volume, you have a problem. And like
that's true. What I'm trying to say is that this is kind of where the admin needs to step in, because the storage class is only editable by the admin. So if the storage class says that the secret for this PVC is in the namespace of the PVC, right? Then there needs to be some coordination if the secret needs to be moved in first. So I think that's an out of band. I think that's outside the scope of this part. That's what I'm trying to say.
But I don't think we have a feature unless we solve that problem, because like this is a core CSI thing that has always worked going back, 6 releases.
I don't disagree with that. I'm trying to say that I feel it's outside the scope. I think there's a new, what we're trying to say is that there's a new requirement that this will require for secrets to also be transferred to a new namespace. And I just think that's outside the scope of this PVC thing, because PVC, it's like, it doesn't really care if the secret's there or not. It's just pointing, right? It's a reference. But I don't think it should be this group's resolution. It's my suggestion.
I actually agree to this as well. I think if we have storage secret, we can just reject the transfer, and we can tackle this in a different chip, and then it can be like added in beta, for example. But for alpha, I think we can focus on BDC and volume snapshot.
I think PV secret can be cloned in just a command line in some cases. So even if we don't have a generic mechanism to transfer the secret, allowing a secret to point to another namespace is useful for users.
Or would it be something like, if we really make this API generic enough, then you could also use this API to transfer secrets explicitly.
But you don't always want to. You don't always want to move it. Sometimes you want to copy it. Like PVCs, you don't want to copy because that's going to cause problems most likely. But secrets, you may want to leave the old one behind and make a new one that's a copy in the new namespace, if the users agree to share the secret.
I guess, I don't know, the API could potentially have a field saying copy or move.
Yeah, this is where I think the admin needs to like step in, right? But I just don't. I'm trying to reduce the scope of the project so we don't keep going.
Yeah. I mean, what I'm talking about, it makes it a lot harder. I don't know how we can draw a line somewhere and say, well, we're not solving that problem, and then ship the feature, and then if you're using any kind of secrets, it just doesn't work.
Well, it's not that it doesn't work. We just have to say it is up to the admin to. I mean, you can write a little Python program to move the secret. That's easy. The hard part is moving the PVC. That's really hard because the PV and the binding is all there. That's where we need this. But if you say, look, it's up to you to make sure it is your responsibility to have the secret in the new area, that's easy. That can easily be done.
Okay, so we punt and just document how you're supposed to do it yourself.
Yeah, that's okay.
Yeah. I mean, it's not great, but it's okay.
in any way to reject, maybe, for that case?
It could be, as long as we have state and the status of the changing, we could, just like we have pods that you submit, and the pod status could say unable to pull image. You could just say things like that.
You'd have a condition on the condition that is secrets.
Yeah, exactly right.
Yeah,
unable to find or something like that. And so it'll probably mostly likely happen by the pod that's trying to mount that PVC anyway. So.
Yeah, I think that's the failure mode is if you do send across a volume that depended on a secret that you can't access now, it'll probably show up when you try to use that volume in the new namespace.
Yep.
The first time you attach to it, you'll have problems.
That's correct. It'll definitely show up in the PVC status. So that's already answered, I think. So.
All right, so I think that's what we agreed on. Anyone has another opinion on that?
Is somebody capturing minutes?
Yeah, I'm writing something.
Okay.
Okay, so just to make sure that I understand correctly, so we will not tackle the storage secrets in this, right?
We won't move storage secrets. We leave it up. That's an exercise for the user or admin. I think that's where we're coming up to.
Well, we still have to decide what exactly we do to the PV. Or we can say that you got to get the secrets over there, but we're going to point the newly rebound PV at a secret in the new namespace, which may or may not be there. Or we can say we're not going to do anything and it's going to continue to point at the old namespace's secret, which will cause a different problem.
Oh, you're talking about the PV because it has a CSI object inside of it that points to the secrets from where the PVC first came out.
Yep.
That's
the fundamental problem is we got to do something with those fields.
I think what we can do, hear me out, let's see what you think about this, is that when it transfers it to the new namespace, it can look at the storage class where the PVC was pointing to and readjust the secrets accordingly. So for example, if they used a template where that PVC used a storage class that pointed to a secret in the namespace of the PVC, then when it moves it across, it'll change that PV to the namespace of the PVC. Actually, isn't that template still there?
I was going to say that the storage class itself might be gone.
No, but the fields still keep the template, right? They don't look at the. Oh, I may be wrong.
I thought that they actually stamped the namespace because the PV object doesn't have a namespace. It's not namespace, so it needs to explicitly point to namespaced secrets in order to function correctly.
Okay,
But,
then that needs to be investigated. But what I'm trying to say is that doing the transfer, yeah, we may need more information.
We can do
there.
the exercise of updating the PV to point to secrets in the new namespace, but then not actually, we could just not make any effort to make the secrets go there, so that your PV is just broken until you make the secrets there.
That's
and
exactly
so that's your problem. That would be a reasonable thing to do. It's just not very friendly.
Yeah, no, that's fine.
I guess how do you detect if that secret was templated to begin with?
I think we're gonna need
Like-
new objects in the PV.
Or maybe have like an annotation to say this was what the template was when it was created.
Absolutely. I think we're gonna need that, because then this controller can use that.
The problem is the template, there's like 8 different templates for all the different kinds of secrets. You would have to save all of them to get all the information you need.
Yep, you would have to do that. Yes.
That's kind of crummy, but that's the way we designed it.
Yeah. Yeah. But I think that would work. Then you would have that information. So I think in conclusion, we're saying we're punting on copying the secret, and we're saying how do we manage the secret transfer is that we may need to enhance the PV CSI object so that the controller have more information to do the transfer correctly. Is that correct?
All right. So we'll update the secret pointers and stop there.
Yes.
Yeah.
That's all you can do.
Seems reasonable. If we can figure out a way to capture all of the information, like assuming we do change the PV spec to capture more information, like what do you do about existing PVs? Like, are they just not transferable if they have secrets?
Can they be updated on the fly if they're missing objects?
Don't think so.
By the
PVs are pretty immutable.
So I guess you're gonna have to wait for this feature to be supported by a certain release number. This is not a out of band feature. This is part of Kubernetes, or is this a sidecar?
I think this is an out of tree feature.
Yeah, like similar to the external snapshot controller, I was thinking.
Okay.
Yeah, PRDs in the controller.
Okay. Well, we can say that this requires a certain version of Kubernetes. If you need this feature.
But even if we make a new version and add more fields, like all of your older PVCs from before that era will not have the fields.
Mm-hmm.
So, and they might not be transferable as a result of that.
Mm-hmm.
You could say, like, not only do you need a version X to use this feature, but your PVs must have been created with version Y or later, or you can't transfer them. I don't know if that's a showstopper or not.
I don't know. That's up to you, the community to decide. But I feel that.
I mean, if the PV doesn't have any secrets, it doesn't matter.
Yeah, exactly.
It'll just work. But if it does, then it won't work.
They will work after a certain version. That's what we can say. Does that make sense, guys?
Yeah.
There will be a case that we can find the information from the storage class.
You can never look at the storage class for an existing PVC or PV
because it could change.
Because it can change or it can get deleted. So
it could be changed, but yeah. So it might not be the perfect solution, but at least we can try it.
We always get in trouble anytime we try to look at the storage class for existing volumes, because it always leads to corner cases. We had this problem with resize, where we had some pointer to like allow volume resize in the storage class, and then when the resize controller was asking if it was okay to resize the volume, it would go look up the storage class at that time, and most of the time it worked, but sometimes it didn't work. And so we decided to copy that field into the PV. I think this is another of those situations where if we end up depending on the storage class, it's just creating more problems.
That sounds correct. So yeah, so my suggestion is if there's no secrets, we can still do this for older versions, but if there's secrets, we're going to depend after the X version of Kubernetes. Michelle, what do you think? Is she here?
I think, yeah, I mean, I think that sounds reasonable to start with. We can, see from there if there are ways we can like backfill objects, but I think it's reasonable to start with this.
Super.
I had a different question. When we last talked about, we also talked about like, I think, what about PVs that have certain operation in progress on them? Like maybe they are being resized, maybe they are being snapshotted. Does it stop them from being transferable to different namespace, or does it create problems? Or maybe even they're being deleted, for example.
How do we do it today for a PV that's being resized that needs to be snapshotted?
Yeah, actually there's no coordination there right now.
I think the two operations race and one wins, right?
Yeah.
It's the same with like a snapshot and a delete. Like if you take a snapshot while you're deleting a volume, either the snapshot gets in first or the delete gets in first. And
I think in that case there's a finalizer somewhere.
So are we saying
at least we check the timestamp at least, but for resize, I don't think it will check anything.
Yeah. Are we saying we leave it up to the storage system to decide that, or are we trying to do that at the Kubernetes level?
In the controller that I wrote, there's a kind of, if you look at the kind of phases that I wrote, in the pending phase, you're kind of waiting for a bunch of things. You're waiting for, no pods using the PVC, and as well as waiting for, I think there are a couple annotations that we wait that don't exist in the PVC. They're like the cloning protection, and PVC is source protection. So we just wait for them not to exist. Of course, there are timing conditions, but
with regard to the snapshotting, I think if the snapshot object is created and if the snapshot controller gets through the process of creating a volume snapshot content object that points to the PV, at that point, it no longer matters if the PVC exists, because the snapshotter has all the information it needs to finish creating that snapshot in the original namespace. And so as long as it gets to that point before the transfer completes, then the snapshot can run in parallel with the transfer and nothing bad will happen. But of course, the snapshot will end up in the original namespace while the volume leaves the namespace, but you'll still get the correct contents of both objects.
But that still sounds racy.
Well, yeah. I mean, if you create the volume snapshot object, and before the snapshot controller can take a look at it and create a volume snapshot content, the transfer successfully executes, then you'll just get an error from the volume snapshot controller saying like, what PVC are you talking about? It's not here, it's gone. And that's fine, right? As you just lost the race.
Yeah, that sounds fun to me. Because to tell you the truth, everything that we do in Kubernetes is pretty undeterministic. I'm trying to. So we just throw things at it, and it's whoever wins, right? So that sounds correct to me.
As long as there's not a situation where they both start doing some work in parallel, and then the fact that they're both working causes one of them to do something weird. As long as you cleanly lose the race, it's fine.
I guess for these use cases, the race is a factor. Maybe you want to transfer a snapshot as opposed to a PVC. You take a snapshot, you transfer the snapshot, and then you source the new PVC in the new target namespace from the snapshot.
Yeah, if I was going to do that, then I would really time it to make sure that the processes were done from a color point of view. But I don't know if that's the answer you're looking for.
Yeah, I mean, the end user is in complete control over when these things happen, right? You can create a snapshot and wait for it to get done before you transfer it, or not.
One question, if we transfer a volume while it is resizing, doesn't it make data corruption?
I don't see why.
No, the volume in the storage system stays in the same place, right? It's just a pointer reference in Kubernetes.
Yeah, all the actual volumes themselves are non-namespaced. The CSI doesn't know anything about namespaces.
Yeah, the thing is that
oh, go ahead.
Oh, sorry. Oh, no, you go ahead, Mr.
I mean, if the source PVC specified the size of A and the transfer namespace copies the size as A, but while it is changing the source size to B, but if the transfer happens at the same time, then it might happen that the mismatch of the volume size.
That's okay. Most storage systems, yeah, most storage systems can the source of truth of the size of the volume is on their metadata, not on Kubernetes.
Yeah, I think the worst case scenario there is that you can end up paying, like having a 5 gig PVC that points to a 10 gig volume. And in that case, you're only charged 5 gig of quota for having that PVC, even though you have 10 gigs of space. So worst case is you can game the quota system by obtaining a volume that's larger than Kubernetes thinks it is.
That's right.
But I
you're
think
not gonna,
from the transfer perspective, like if a resize was in progress, then what I would expect to happen is the resize would continue after the transfer is done, because the PVC size and the PV size might be out of date or might be different.
Right, but here we're actually making another PVC, and so there's a time window where you can modify the old PVC with a new size after the controller has read it before it has written the new one, and initiate a resize, you know, that the controller is not going to copy to the new namespace, right? Because it read the old size and started to copy it, but then you quickly came in and issued a new size that the resize controller reacted to before the object got deleted.
I just want to make
that
sure
would be the trick.
But I just want to make sure we're talking about, when we mean copying, we're not talking about data copying. We're talking about the reference.
Making a new Kubernetes object.
Yeah.
Even those has to be synchronized, and those has to reflect proper state. So in this case, like, yeah, if the resize was triggered and then you transferred, then resize was half done, we will lose the state. That's the concern, actually.
Yeah.
And yeah, in an ideal world, we would expect the resize to finish so that the volume is resized to proper size wherever it lands.
Like maybe can the transfer controller wait until any pending operations are done before transferring?
But what is it used
Even
to
that's
serialize
racy.
on?
Even that's racy.
Yeah, yeah.
You have to have some per PVC lock that you would end up holding, either by like setting the phase to something different, and then other controllers refusing to interact with it when it was in that phase, or something like that.
Yeah, I think the best path is to transfer snapshots, because these are static objects that don't get manipulated by anyone. And you can, even though we're not doing any data transfer, any data copies, it kind of falls in that realm.
Copying, yeah, transferring snapshots is a heck of a lot safer, but
Right.
you're going to get complaints from people who have drivers that don't support snapshots and they just want to transfer the PVCs directly, right? That's because if everyone supported snapshots across the board, then yeah, you could say, look, we only support transferring snapshots and just clone the snapshot when it gets to the other side.
Can we just do that? Can we just say, hey, the first generation of this project it's a
Snapshot only?
snapshot? Yeah. I mean, unless somebody brings up a use case for not doing that.
No, I mean,
That's-
I kind of agree, but the use case is, what about the drivers that don't support snapshots?
Then what I'm trying to say is that when we hear that use case, then we'll start that enhancement. I keep trying to reduce the scope of this project.
Yeah.
So I'm trying to say, look, guys, forget secrets, forget, keep it simple, snap the volume, create clone in the other side and call it a day, right?
And I think by transferring snapshots and sourcing a new PV, you're also sidestepping some of the PV problems like mutable fields, things like that, right?
Yeah.
Because we are getting a new PV, it's a new life cycle. I think we still have the secret problem, but we're not going to have the PV problems.
Well, you have the secret problem with snapshots in general, or it's up to the CSI driver to persist any related secret information because Kubernetes doesn't really help you, I don't think.
No, what when you create a PVC, you can say, Xing, let me know if I'm wrong. You say, this, my source is another PV, but you still point to a storage class. Is that correct?
And there's a
Yeah.
there's a storage class.
So then your secret information for the new one will be in that one.
But I mean, but snapshot has its own secrets as well. So
Yeah, like if the snapshot was encrypted with the old user's secret and the new user has a different secret, when they try to clone it, they won't be able to decrypt the snapshot. And yeah, you could say again, like, well, that's your problem.
Yeah.
But
Oh, that,
but yeah, that
I'm
could
sorry,
happen.
why do we need to clone? I'm sorry, I missed something here. When we're talking about snapshot, why do we need to clone it? It's the same content, right?
If instead of transferring the volume across the namespace, you first took a snapshot and then transferred the snapshot across the namespace and then turned the snapshot back into a volume after it got transferred.
So you actually have to do a like.
Now you have a second volume.
You could do a volume clone. Yeah.
That's different. Okay, that seems to be different from what's proposed here originally. Okay.
Right, but that doesn't have the because snapshots are static. They don't have the problem of concurrent operations, things like that.
It's dramatically easier to only support snapshots and not volumes for all of these like resize and other reasons. But I don't know,
what it's being used and everything, because it could be a database, right?
What about the original authors of the KEP? What do you guys think about the possibility of descoping it to just snapshots?
I think Christian is not here, but Michael is here. So
I think one advantage of snapshots is also the data that you're, let's say, transferring is in a stable and consistent state. Whereas, like, I think what Christian said, like he currently requires, pods using the PVCs in the source namespace to get teared down. So nobody's using those pods and then the transfer happens. So there's some element of coordination here in between source and destination namespaces. Whereas with snapshots, you don't even have that. You don't even require that coordination.
We could start with that. We
well, I wonder if
almost on time actually. So
yeah, so I always thought that snapshots were a good use case. So totally. But I'm just wondering if we can, even in transferring PVCs, use them internally. So we would snapshot the PVC in the source and then delete it and then transfer and create it. Like I think we could do a lot of the orchestration maybe in the controller. If we
That's true.
Built off of the transfer.
Well, but that ends up building a dependency on the driver actually supporting the snapshot
right.
feature.
Yeah.
And if the driver actually supports the snapshot feature, why not just allow the user to do these steps of taking the snapshot and transferring the snapshot so that they're closer to what's actually happening?
But I mean, I think what we're trying to say is that if the infrastructure supports this, then what the user is really trying to do is not to transfer a volume. What the user is really trying to do is to transfer an app, right? So we just can make that happen easily through some CR, just like we're doing here. We take care of that process, is what I'm trying to say. Does that make sense?
Yeah. Hey, sorry.
Yeah, I mean, everything that's going on
off.
in this controller could be done manually by the user too.
Sure, but we're just trying to make it, that's all automated.
I know I am pro automating things for the user, and just because it can be done out of fandom, why not make it easier?
And can we create a volume clone from a PVC on another namespace today?
I
No.
don't believe so.
Okay.
I think
So-
both snapshots and clones have to be the same namespace.
Okay, so that would be the addition, and that would be, is that like the lowest hanging fruit if we did that?
I mean, today, if you have admin privileges, you can manually move a snapshot across namespaces by mucking with the retention policy, deleting the volume snapshot object, creating a new volume snapshot object, rebinding it, and all that. And then now you have a volume snapshot in the new namespace that you can go ahead and clone. Like that's possible to do manually today.
But should the snapshot controller support a source in a different namespace? Sorry,
I mean, I
clone?
think that comes with like all the security concerns
Yeah,
that the namespace transfer is trying to address, right?
Yeah, but
Yeah.
I'm trying to hook the two. So if you had the CRs here for acceptance and things like that, would that help you?
We
You mean, but make them all snapshot
in volume
specific,
snapshot, we
or-
actually made some changes that every time you create a new volume snapshot, you actually have to create a new volume snapshot content. So we actually don't really allow the transfer to happen easily. Yeah, so that's not.
But you can
possible.
bind a volume snapshot to a pre-existing VSC.
No, you cannot. You have to create a different one. You have to create a different one.
Right. But
If it's
I mean,
not,
I'm
it's
saying,
pre-existing.
I'm saying you can create the new VSC yourself,
Yeah,
and then
you can.
bind any
Correct.
VS to it that you want.
Correct. Yeah, that is possible. So I think we are really out of time.
Yeah.
Yeah, we need to have a follow-up, I think. So okay, so it looks like now we are okay. So now we are looking at whether to allow transfer volume snapshot. So maybe we need to have a follow-up meeting to continue that discussion. And Mustafa, are you okay with that? Maybe just to
Yeah, sure.
What we can proceed with that approach.
Yeah. Actually, since the beginning, I thought this is would be the way to go.
Okay. All right. All right then. Yeah. So if anyone has any other comments, please feel free to add to this agenda doc. I will summarize my notes and add to this doc as well. Okay.
Excellent. Thank you guys so much.
Thank you. Bye-bye.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Bye.